Hi everyone, and welcome to our next live match. We're at Barston today on a Barston Masters qualifier, and we've drawn peg 112. So Barston Masters, you need to win your 10 peg section basically to qualify for a final in around the end of October, November time, and the winner normally gets to just over £2,000, so it's well worth fishing for. Now our section today runs from me all the way up to the famous 124, so it's not an ideal draw for your section, but quickly talking about my setup, we're just before the match is going to start. Got an island in front of me, and it's normally not great, to be honest, that's the truth of it, but I'm going to start off long on like a method feed, a 36 gram method, just with some 2mm pellets around it. I'll talk you a bit more about what I'm actually going to feed when I'm doing it, when we're on the actual fishing. And then I'm going to loose feed some 8mm pellets to fish a waggler or method or a bomb over it. That line works really, really well here. Now, the other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to fish at 14 metres on the bottom, and I'm just going to fish corn. This is normally quite a good area for skimmers, and this around here in the commercial knockout last year, this around this area is where Lee Carey actually won the match from, with just over £100. And I was just up there, and again, like corn were by far the best bait. So today's approach, if I can catch on a rod and line, great, but I think our best chance of doing any good is fishing corn on the pole. So just going to sort the rest of my stuff out just before the all-in, and then once we've started fishing long, I'll bring you, we'll come back and I'll let you know how we're getting on. Right, so we've literally just started the match. Just fed 100mm of corn on my long pole line, and then loose fed some 8mm on my bomb stroke waggler stroke method line. Started off on a 36 gram method towards the island. Caught a little skimmer first chuck after sort of 3.5 minutes. And then I've had a little tiny bite, which turned out to be a nice 7-pound, I reckon, carp. And then this is my third cast and my third fish, so it's all going quite well at the moment. I was surprised, really, to be honest, because I actually thought I'd really struggle until, it was time to go on the pole, to be honest. But I suppose that's the one thing with these big open water lakes, you just never know. And it's weird because I've also been loose feeding, and I've also just seen, I'm sure I see a fish in my bait where I loose fed. It might have been a grebe, but I don't think it was. So just got because I'm chucking such a long way, I've just got a long white hydro stem. That's another nice carp. It's going alright for us. So pellet wise, start looking, it's look lovely in the bottom of the mouth, which is perfect. Just got a 3-inch hook length, and then hook bait wise I'm using one of my little yellow bandams. Just one thing when you're doing this, just check your hook's still razor sharp and your hair's coming off right. So I'm just using a tiny little sort of off yellow bandam, that sort of colour. Just seems to work well here. And then the pellet wires I use, I'm just using them 2mm betaine, Blake's betaine pellets. And they just go really, really nice and sticky. So, not overloading it. So now I've just take my time, again, because I don't chuck a long way very often. Just need to set myself and then go for it. So, check my line, get my spot, nice and slowly, aim high, release, lovely. Line wise, I'm just using 8-pound pulse direct. Again, I haven't got a leader on or anything like that, just 8-pound, a bit thinner than 10-pound and goes a bit further. So all my bites have come sort of 3.5 to 4 minutes, which is a good thing with my stopwatch. So once I've chucked my feeder out, it's just a case now of I can be a bit more aggressive on my loose fed lines if I'm getting bites on this. So feeding sort of, don't know, 10-12 pellets 3 or 4 times. The thing is with Barston, it's very shallow, so you find that the fish don't tend to sit in your peg. They're always, I'm sure I've just seen a fish roughly on the line that I've been loose feeding. So I'm going to keep firing my 8mm. Try and be nice and aggressive whilst I'm not actually fishing it. Try and, really feed quite often, quite a bit of bait, try and get some fish in the peg. And then I think, just like loose feeding my corn, like corn just seems to work so well here, and loose feeding works really, really well. Like my pole line is literally just under 4 foot. So, it's another bite, literally 1 minute and 15 seconds in. I don't know what it is, probably a little skimmer. But as I've wound in then, I've just seen a fish spook. So it's all going well at the moment. A lot better than I expected, to be honest. I suppose that's why it just shows to cover your options. To be honest, I never even expected to get a bite on this. Often these islands look a lot better than they are. Normally find that when you do well here, catch over loose fed. So, get this one in. And then we carry on plugging away on this, because all of the time I'm getting some bites, keep putting something in the net. Then if anything, the other line's just going to get stronger and stronger. The more I feed them without fishing it, they should get better. So, nice skimmer. It's in the bottom of the meal. That's the sort of size ones that we're looking to catch on the pole. So, I'll carry on plugging away, and then if anything changes, or if we change, then we'll have another catch up. Right, so we are 1 hour and 50 minutes in now. To be honest, after that initial spell of bites, them 2 carp and a couple of skimmers on the long method, I've had a go on the short method, never had a bite. I've had a few goes on a waggler and I've missed 2 bites, but to be honest, it's been a real struggle keeping my line tight. So my plan at the moment, with the way it's going, it's a nice F1. My plan at the moment, with the way, it's on a power shake, it's actually hooked in the bottom of the mouth. So, yeah, like I say, my plan at the moment, now the wind's dropped, is carry on this waggler. That long range line I'm not going to do anything with, just if I need to drop on it every now and again I can, but I'm going to still keep feeding that pole line because it's really slowed up now. Not millions of fish being caught, so I think, feeling my way into it, basically what's happening at the moment, trying to get an odd bite on this, and then maybe drop on the method later on, or even the bomb. And then just keep feeding me pole line. But the problem is, with the way the wind's coming, within seconds of my float landing, there's a bow in my line, and the 2 bites that I've missed have come the second the float's landed. And that bite from an F1, see there, like the bow in my line's that way. So there's not a lot I can really do about it, because I've tried sinking my line, keep my float still, and I've not had a bite as yet. But I'm just going to keep persevering with this. Now, the one thing with this lake is, because it's basically about 4 foot deep, it's not like your normal sort of venue where it's sort of 5 or 6 foot deep. You can catch them quite close to the float. So at the moment I'm probably about just over 2 foot, I reckon, about 2 foot. But they do catch here sometimes, literally fishing 12 inches deep and actually hanging the float. I've had a couple of goes doing that, but no bites as yet. That was an indication there, see. It's a frustrating thing with this. I know if the wind were off my back, or even in my face, you'd be able to keep your line tight and you'd catch them. But when it's like this, what I might have to do now is just start holding the rod, because I'm literally just going to get 3 or 4 seconds within the float lands, and then there's already going to be a bow in my line. So I think what I'm going to do now is, because everyone's coming the second the float lands, what I'm going to do, I'm going to cast out, hold the rod for sort of 5-6 seconds. If I don't get a bite, feed, put it on my rod rest, like twitch it, tighten it up on my rod rest, feed, and then cast back out again. Because even now I know that there's just going to be a big bow in my line. So I suppose it's the same for everyone on Outland. It's just frustrating, because you know that if you could keep your float still, that's the biggest thing when you're doing this. So I cast it out nice and hard. I'm using an 8 gram waggler at the moment. It would be much better with a 6 gram, but with a 6 gram there's just way too much bow in my line immediately. So that's the thing, it's just trying to find, you know, the lightest float you can use. Just try and keep that line tight. I've got a 10 gram one there, but the problem is it makes so much noise on impact. Like if I could fish a little bit further away from the flow, say 3 foot, 4 foot, then the noise of the float is not as important, because you're fishing so far away from it. But I know what it's like here in the past. Like, I don't fish millions of matches here, but when I have caught them in the past, you do tend to catch them quite close to your float. So what I'm going to do, I'll have a cast, this cast, and then before I feed, like, I'm going to twitch it, put it on my rod rest. If I don't get one, I've got to feed that pole line. It's the one thing when you're doing this, don't neglect your other lines. So just feed in a fair bit of corn. Again, you know, when I've caught on the pole here in the past, it's not a sort of softly placed that where feeding very little bait gets your bites. If you don't get any bites, it seems like the more you feed the better it gets, rather than the less you feed. So stop that flow. Just gonna have a couple of casts now without feeding. Just see, sometimes, I don't know if that was a sign or not, sometimes that can be absolutely deadly. Like, once you've been doing your little routine for a little bit, just having a few casts without feeding anything, there's an odd one there, quite often that'll be your best chance of getting a bite. So have one more cast without feeding, then go back and do my routine. But so just try and, when it's like this, when the wind's sideways on, it's, you know, when you cast out, you can't really feather it. You've just got to try and cast it low and hard and just stop it so it straightens all your line up. So Have a go doing my feeding bit again. Just dry my hands off. Try and get that float out of the water. You don't want to be winding in with your rod down, because one, you've got more chance of foul looking one, but two, your line goes on your spool a bit too, like it goes on your spool tight, so when you're using a light float you won't be able to get the same distance. So, flick it up in. Feed a few pellets. Thing is, the fact that, you know, the bites that I've had have come the second the float lands, it's pointless sort of twitching it in the float of them, twitching the float into the bait, like feeding twice, if that makes sense. Just got to try and, they're all coming the second the float lands. I just think the more you cast, the more opportunities you'll get. Again, a few pellets. Now, it's quite knackering, to be honest, but most of the time, the more you cast, the more signs, indications you get. So I'm just going to change it up. So I'm going to do this, like, have a couple of goes feeding twice per cast, and if that don't work, then go back to feeding once. Just try and stop it, get it on my rod rest, so if anything touches it, it'll pull the rod. That's the biggest thing with this, you've got to constantly sort of change it up. You often find that when you change something up, it's normally the time when you get a bite. But literally just about 2 hours in, just like I say, there's not millions being caught. The lad to my left's got an F1 and a couple of skimmers. The lad to his left, I've seen him catch 2 or 3, 2 carp on a feeder long. Early on when we caught ours, and then he's had, I think, a couple of carp, maybe an F1 on a waggler. But he's not actually in our section goes to the right, so what I'll do is I'll keep plugging away with this, and then as soon as we catch one, we'll have a little catch up. a bit of an update. We've got just under 2 hours to go, and to be honest, it's been quite frustrating because I foul looked and lost 3 fish on a waggler. I'm just really struggling to keep me float still. So I had a quick look on the pole, never had a bite, which surprised me, to be honest, because I thought I would get an odd bite on that from little skimmers. And then I had 2 chucks on my method over my loose fed line, never had a bite on that. So I've changed it to a bomb, and I caught 1 F1, and it had only been out there a couple of minutes. So this is my second cast on my bomb. Now it's gone flat calm. I'm going to give this literally another minute or 2 if I don't get one. I think I'm going to have a quick look on a waggler, because whilst it's flat like this is going to be my best chance of catching one. So, though I don't normally loose feed when I'm fishing a bomb, I think what I'm going to do, because this is the flat, literally the flattest it's been, we can fish the bomb if it gets windy. We can't fish our waggler, but I'm just going to hook that up because I might only literally get a minute or 2. So, best float seems to be my 6 gram guru. So, just with a red pellet on the hook. So, I need to sort my rubber rest out. Hopefully it goes under. This might be, literally, we might only get 2 or 3 minutes where it's calm. If it stays like this, see there, look, fed twice and my float has not even moved. That's the biggest thing when you're doing this. Like, I'm the world's worst for it, to be honest, because I love catching on it, and if I'm getting an odd sign on it, I can't put it down, I can't help myself. But you just got to know when you count, when you see that I had a little sign then, little on my float. You've got to know when you can fish it and when you can't fish it. There's a fish just topped past where I'm fishing. That's the thing today, it's been quite frustrating because early on, you know, we had them couple of carp on our feeder and a couple of skimmers, and honestly thought, you know, we're going to get some bites today, be it on a bomb or even a feeder on this line where I'm loose feeding. You'd expect to catch, you know, even getting bites from little skimmers, but you're not. And like I say, I've not had a bite on the pole. I mean, we've still got just under 2 hours left, so you never know, but it's just hard, to be honest, when it's difficult like this. It's hard to know. See there, I've got a bow on my line, so I'm just going to hold my rod, see if I get a bite. If I don't, I've got to straighten my line up, because the wind's going to push my line, cause my float to be moving, and if your float's moving, you won't get a bite doing it. Like I say, every one of the bites, I caught an F1 and a carp on this. But every one of the bites that I've had have been now, the second the float lands. That's why you need the conditions really well, to be honest. So, I would have thought, to be honest, I would have got a bite. First couple of chucks on it. I think that it's just typical Barston, to be honest. Like a lot of the pegs, they just drift in and out of your peg where it's so shallow. They don't tend to sit in your peg. It was in the 50s, it's a bit deeper there. That can be a bit better, as again can the, you know, the little dink then on my fly. That's twice now I've seen a little indication, but it's not tightened up. So what I'm going to do this time, I'm literally just going to move my float down a couple of inch, not much, just 2 inches. Just nip my shots back on. Take me hook out of my tail. Hook-wise, I'm using a 12 QM1. Just find that the thing is with these hooks, when they come in, they don't go out, they don't pop out. So I foul look free, I lost them, but when you hook them in the mouth, they don't come off, and especially if you're getting most of the bites, the second you float land, it's such a good hook for that. So, I'm going to literally give it another probably 5 or 6 casts. If I don't get a bite, then I'm going to go back on my bomb, because I caught one literally after 2 minutes of my bomb being out, and that one, when we started, was literally my second chuck, and it hadn't been out there long. But the fact that the wind had calmed down a little bit, I've had most of my bites on this, to be honest. I just thought I'd give it another couple of minutes till I can't fish it. Now I'm just going to have like 3, there we are. You know, as soon as you can hold that line tight, I was just about to say then, I'm going to have 3 or 4 chucks without a bite, because I've had 2 little tiny dinks on my flow. And once you've been doing your routine for a little bit, you've just got to be so careful here, because it's very tight to me left. Make sure I don't go over his line. Just going to have to shout. Sorry mate, I've got one coming towards you on the left. Sorry. Yeah, you see my line? Sorry. Try and get it out. It's so frustrating this. But there's not a lot you can do when you're so tied to each other. You don't get millions of bites. I don't want to pull too hard. Sorry, it's under your line now. I've just lifted your line up. No, I've lifted your line up. It's underneath your line, sorry. Sorry to be a nuisance. Yeah, I'm sorry. Be nice if they all went to the right where you got your little bit of space, isn't it? I think we're safe now. Yeah, I think so. Thank you. So, oh, I thought he'd come off then. Must have just rolled over his fin. And this is the one thing, back onto the fishing bit. A bit of a nightmare, but there's nothing you can do about it when you're this tight. They swim where they want to swim. Yeah, when you're doing this, the conditions are everything, and the more you do it, the more you realise when you can fish and when you can't fish. So, again, it's very shallow and close, so try and take my time. Once they come in, they tend to just bolt off because it's so shallow. Just get the net ready. Hopefully he behaves. Feels a bit funny the way he's swimming, like he's hooked. Not in the mouth. So he pops up. I don't want to pull too hard, but I'm only using £5 line, Pulse Pro, 020 hook length, just so I can try and use my lightest little float. Like, as soon as early on when I first chuck, as soon as I change to my 6 gram float, after fishing my 8 gram float, you get a bite. So big and clever, just known. It's always the way. The lightest float you can use, the more bites you get. It's frustrating when you know if you could use a certain float or a lighter float, for instance. Get him in. Yeah, it's just frustrating because you know if you could use a lighter float, you'd get more bites. That's the thing. Nice, big one. They're so cute, these fish. The problem is as well, like I think when they're swimming, like they're so slow. That's a nice fish. Another 20 of them and we'll be well away. So, one thing like there, you'll be able to see this, my float stops are moved. Always make sure that they're nice and together. I'm just fishing a no, I wasn't. I was fishing a red pellet. I was going to say, like on my bottom, I always like having a few lighter coloured 8mm when your 8mm quite dark. So, let's see if we can catch another one. So again, try and get it sort of half the rod drop if you can. Like you've got to try and cast quite low if that's possible. I don't know if that was me or a little indication. I was going to say, yeah, like with your float, try and get it sort of roughly half the rod length, and you'll find that then it'll come off your rod at a lower angle, and that way you can stop it, and the float will fold, and it'll pull your line. That's so important. If you can get your float still with a lighter float more often than anyone else, I promise you, you will catch so many more fish. You know how important it is when we're fishing at, you know, a place like Tunnel and you've got 4-inch line and you miss bites. So when you've got like 25 metres a line in, see how important it is. So just get it set, nice firm cast, stop it, and just hold the rod there. Because I've leant a bit forward, I don't want to pull it onto my wrist because I move my float. So most of the bites come the second the float lands. So that's what you got to do now. You know, you're not gonna. Fortunately, you're not gonna get millions of bites doing this. You just got to keep persevering. Quite often, it's when the conditions allow you. Is when you'll be getting your bites. They can be in your peg, and you struggle to catch them. And all it is because your float's moving and you try fishing a heavier waggler sometimes and just don't get any bites. That's why it's always worth, having a couple of wagglers on your side try early on, find out, what seems to be the best way. Like sometimes, you can use heavy float and get away with it, but most of the time, to be honest, like using your foam floats are a lot better because obviously they make a lot less noise when they land on the water. And when you do get the wind, normally the best flow, if you can fish it, is this little 6 grammer. So stop it. Again, I'm just a little indication there. So I'm going to have 2 more casts and feeds, and then I'm going to have a few chucks without feeding. Just give it a split second, see if anything's going to grab it. Flick it up, try and flick my rod into the wind and wind so it's straight, so if I've got my catapult and it goes, try and make it. Always try and think about keeping that line tight. So, roughly half the rod again. Stop, hold, anticipate it, hopefully. Go under. So no bites again. Flick it up, flick your rod into the wind. Just wind it down so it's nice and tight. So now what I'm going to do is again I'm just going to have 3 or 4 chucks without feeding and just see if we can catch one doing that. stop it. Just wait, give it a few seconds. And pick out a wind in. I mean, it does take a bit of practice doing this, but stop. Just getting the right stop. You know, talk yourself through it. If you stop it a bit too soon and it sort of bounces and comes back, again, it's not going to be tight. And again, if you stop it too late as such, then it crashes into the water and don't sound right. It's almost, you know, when you're casting out as such, stop. That was millisecond too late. Millisecond, yeah, too late, sorry, too early. So it just wasn't quite dead tight. But if you talk yourself through it, you'll get to know roughly where to stop the float. So one more chuck. That's better. So if I don't get a bite, I'm going to go through my feeding, do that, you know, 10 or 12 times, 10 or 12 casts, and then have my cast without feeding. So, I've got just under an hour and 40 minutes to go. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to carry on plugging away, and we'll have a catch up in a little bit. Right, so we had that great big one on the bomb, and then since then that was about an hour and 20 minutes to go, and we've literally got 20 minutes to go. Since then, to be honest, I've missed two little dinks on the waggler, and this is my first bite out of the blue, but again, just lad next to me, both doing exactly the same thing, feeding 8 mils, but he's using a PVA bag, and that does work really, really well there. The thing is, there's a lot of carp anglers that come to Barston, and they feed a hell of a lot of boilies. That's why that loose fed line's so good. But to be honest, I just thought I'd be okay fishing a straight lead and a waggler over my loose fed stroker feeder. I didn't want to do too much because you can confuse yourself. And it's been a long time, to be honest, since I've been here. And I remember when I was on the dam wall, and again over my loose fed line, and I've really struggled, to be honest, like on a method, on a bomb, on a waggler. And that day, as soon as I chucked a PVA bag out with this mainline hybrid liquid, I had some bites on it. I'm sat here today thinking, you know, I'm sure it would have got us 1 or 2 more pulls from these carp. Just doesn't seem to be like your normal commercial fishery. But yeah, it was lovely catching that big one. My arms were nearly falling off. It's been awkward, like I would say quite strange today, because I really expected before the start, thought if we're lucky we might catch, you know, one early on a feeder. More, to be honest, on a method over that loose fed line rather than a bomb and waggler. And then honestly thought that it'd be a pole match, to be honest here, because the last time I was here was in that knockout cup. I wouldn't have thought too, you know, dissimilar in time, you know, for the month wise. Maybe a little bit later it was, I'm not 100% sure, to be honest. And I really thought, you know, get a few bites on the pole. I suppose that's the one thing about when you go into a venue regular. It's a bit like, you know, the stuff when we go to Tunnel, we go Toddler, you know, that we take for granted sort of thing. And when they're as big as they are, you know, 1 or 2 little things can make a massive difference. But, you know, all in all, not drawn great today, so just to get a few bites, to be honest, is quite nice, especially when they're as big as they are. He's actually, foul looked, he's actually hooked in the eye socket. So, yes. It's quite a quick bite, to be honest, after casting, so. You know what they say, better to be lucky than good. All I'm doing, hook bait wise, is just using a very light coloured 8mm on the hook. Just check that my hair is sat right. Not getting millions of bites, so it's important to take your time. And then just I've got a little pot here of light coloured 8mm. I don't want one that's too small. Just make sure he's hooked. Just check the point of my hook. Still nice and sharp. Pop my lead down. One thing when I used to do this a lot, to be honest, is one of the best ways of fishing a lead is to actually feed first. And then you want to aim your lead literally 1 metre or 2 past it, and then wind onto the bait. And that way you always know that you're fishing over them brand new pellets. And when they're tuned into, you know, the noise of the pellets, when you're fishing a straight lead, like over that loose fed line, over your waggler line, to be honest, that's normally the best way of doing it. And then all I've been doing is just literally looking at my stopwatch. I had a little indication then. It's the first time in like an hour and a bit, to be honest, apart from them 2 little dinks on a waggler that we missed, they've had a sign. But what I was going to say is I'll feed my pellets what I think's the required amount. You know, just as a rough guide, when you're fishing a waggler, you're feeding all the time. So when you're fishing a bomb, I think it's important not to keep feeding, because I think what happens is wherever basically your pellets land, you want your rig right in it. So if anything that's come to the noise of them pellets followed them down, if I cast my bomb out and then loose feed over it, I could chuck my bomb here and actually my bait ends up over here, and that's where they're going to follow it. So when you're fishing a lead, like, I think that's really, really important to feed first and then cast your lead into it. Now, because this lake is quite shallow, and you always feel like you've got to sort of draw the fish in. Like I said earlier, it never feels like they're actually sat in your peg eating. Like when I go to gold as such, that's how you feel what happens, they're in your peg eating. So the biggest thing with your lead fishing really is just getting your timing right. So what I've been doing, sort of leaving it 3.5 minutes without feeding. And then just before I think, right, I need to feed again, what I'll do is I pick my catapult up, put sort of 5 or 6 pellets in it, loose feed it, and just leave it for another minute and see, because sometimes that can work really, really well. Just like, your straight lead fishing is just basically like your pole fishing when you're fishing hard pellets on the pole. The amount of times that, your rig's in the water, loose feed your pellets, they literally hit the water and the float goes under, even though you might be fishing sort of 5-6 foot deep. They're definitely so tuned into noise. So that's another little trick that you can try when you're doing it. But for me, I'd much rather feed first. There we are. It was a proper bite. Almost lost my rod. And when they're on it, when they've tuned into the bait, it's such a good way of doing it, to be honest. And it just forces, I think sometimes as well it's the change of F1, I think. It's the change of feeding. So when you're when you're fishing your waggler and you're in and out feeding all of the time, when you have a go on your bomb, basically, you're stopping feeding, so you want the fish on the bottom. You don't want them swirling as such for the pellets. So I think, by getting your timing right, basically, then what can often happen when you're fishing a bomb is you'll feed your pellets twice, cast into it. You get, when they're there and they're sat in the peg as such, you'll get an odd sign, but you won't get a bite. Then, the very next chuck, feed your pellets twice, chuck your bomb in, put the rod on the rest, go to tighten it up, and the rod's already round. And I think that's why doing it like this is such a good way of doing it. Now again, because I still want to be I want to be feeding enough to keep whatever fish there happy, if that makes sense. So again, just pass my bait, just wind on down to it, get my rod set. Just going to move that slightly. She moved my butt rest, that bite. Yeah, that's what I was saying, sorry. Like feeding twice, you want to make sure that you're feeding enough to keep any fish that are there happy. But getting your timing right when you're doing this, and that's why you always want to use your stopwatch when it's a lead day. Whenever you're ledgering, to be honest, be it a method feed or a lead, it's uncanny how often you'll get a little window of when you're going to be getting your bites, like early on that feeder. 3.5 minutes seems to be the sort of bite time. It's a bit different with a waggler, but you're thinking about when are you catching them. As the float lands, are you catching it on the twitch? Are you catching them hanging it? Are you only catching them when you don't feed? Whereas when you're doing this, the biggest thing, I think personally, is to feed that amount of bait, chuck your bomb in, and just leave it. Don't feed over the top of it. You've only got to look at pole fishing. You wouldn't say, feed your bait where my rod tip is. You wouldn't, that's where you're going to fish and feed. You wouldn't feed your bait where my rod tip is and then chuck your rig over there, because you wouldn't get a bite. So that's exactly what you're trying to do when you're lead fishing, but basically backwards. Feed first, cast into it. And one other little tip as well is length of hook length. Sometimes a real short hook length can work well. Other times, I would say my standard sort of hook length is 12 inch. That's, if you're unsure, you won't go too far wrong with a 12 inch hook length. And then I'm fishing 022 pure, which is a fluorocarbon hook length, and a 10 QM1. And to be honest, since I've started using this setup, something that my mate Penn showed me, I honestly believe I catch more fish rather than using sort of 020 mono and a 12 QM1. But it's been it's been an interesting day today. It's a lot different than what you would say I'm used to. It's been nice fishing that waggler, getting frustrated because you catch more if you could fish properly, but to be honest, what has shocked me is I've had a couple of 2 looks on the pole and not had a bite. And that's surprising really, because I honestly thought, a bit of wind on the water, it's been bright at times, been overcast at times. And I've sat in the water deliberately, to be honest, so that I'm getting that extra metre. So I'm going to fish 14 metres as such. When my shortfall just puts me out in the lake that little bit. And I honestly thought I'd get a few more bites on it. So I've just had a little liner there. So I'm not going to leave it much longer, another minute I reckon. If I don't get a bite, wind in, change me up bait, feed twice, and then chuck in on it. This is the one thing as well, after a period of time, when you've been waggler fishing, you can imagine the build-up of bait on the bottom. There's a lot of bait on the bottom. It takes a while for them to clear it out. In an ideal world, you want them right tuned in to that, feeding that bait, the bait that you feed twice, and home straight in on it. That's what you want. That's when you have your best lead days. So I literally leave it another 30 seconds or so. If I don't get a bite, because say we're winding, I'm not going to feed before I wind in, because we've literally only got about 6 or 7 minutes to go. So I think my best chance of getting a bite is just to feed and put my lead straight back in it. So literally a couple more seconds. Right, I think that's been out long enough. So change my pellet, so I've got a brand spanker on. I think that's really important, when this works and they're tuned into it, they're tuned into them brand new pellets in the water and they're following them down. So it makes sense to put a brand new one on. So try and feed my pellets, not too far, but far enough. I want them grouping nice, that's the biggest thing. Distance is important, definitely. But don't fire them too far that they spread here, there and everywhere. So just going to wind that back onto my bait. Pop that down. Just tighten up to a bit of it. Now, when it comes to sort of feeding and casting into it, it does take a bit of practice, to be honest. But for me personally, 2/3 of an ounce, that little square guru lead, that's the only one I use. Just have a go, go out and practice, or after the match, just feed your bait and have a go with all your different leads. And depending on what rod you use, you'll find a lead that your hand-eye coordination, you'll just find one that works best for you as such. But that 2/3 of an ounce little square one, that's perfect for me. And in terms of lead shape, I'd always go for that little square one, to be honest, on this line. It's just a nice shape, even when you're fishing tight to islands as such. You find they don't roll, whereas the distance-y sort of round ones can roll a little bit. But that's the one that to be honest, I find best. So it's definitely something. The lad next to me on my left has literally just caught a skimmer. hooked a BVA bag, chucked it back out, and I'm sat here sort of remembering where you don't come very often. I'm definitely remembering, and I think that's, looking back, you know, today, that's the biggest trick we've missed. So we caught one. I don't know actually how long it's been out for, but like on a normal sort of commercial venue, a bomb can be absolutely deadly, but there's something about it here. Just see so many boilies. Yeah, left one. Yeah, there's something definitely about it here that fish in a PVA bag, like I say, with that liquid. One of the most popular ones here, sort of like, obviously mainline, such a popular carp fishing bait. That's what a lot of them use. Either the cell one or the hybrid liquid. So, repeat the process. Now, I know it's only a tiny little thing, but just remember, you know, when you're hair rigging your baits, always check the point of your hook. Make sure it's razor sharp. If it's not, just change it. So get my band nice and central. Get my lead on. Take your time when you're doing it, you know, there's no rush. The last thing that I want to do is feed bait and have to feed again to cast into it. So I always, you know, take your time a little bit. Again, there's one lot of 8mm. Feed again. Now watch me head, I don't look down, I'm only looking at where them pellets have landed. And if they go slightly to the left or slightly to the right, it doesn't matter where they go, as long as you cast your lead in it. Because wherever they go, normally, that's where the fish will end up. So if the wind catches them slightly, you know, once you've fed them, they've gone slightly to your left, don't worry about it, just chuck your lead straight into it. You know, on a big open water like this, flat. So don't worry too much about being ultra accurate. It's more important that wherever them pellets land, that you cast your bomb into it. So literally only got a couple of minutes left. But no, it's been nice, to be honest. As I say, a change is as good as the rest. See, they're on it now, they've rocked up on it. Oh, please don't go that way. Sorry. I've got one coming over you again. I'm sorry. I'll try and keep it up. Yeah, I'm way over you, sorry. They always want to go this way. Feels like they snagged me solid. Try and keep it up. Yeah, I think we're alright now. I think so, thank you. There's not a lot you can do about it when, you know, when that happens, but as long as you shout up, you know, it's one of them things, unfortunately. There's not a lot you can do about it. But again, just got to remember when it happens to you to be nice and patient. So, if we get this one in, be a nice end, to be honest. It's been nice being sat here again, you know, bringing all my memories back when I used to do it all of the time. When it goes round, it's so good. Try and get him in head first. So it's a lovely end, to be honest. That's the end of the match. So. The hook's popped out in the land in that. Pop him in the net. So it's been a lovely end. Had a few, nice to get a couple of bites at the end. So what we do, we'll weigh in and then we'll have a little conclusion afterwards. And then what I want to do is just talk to you, you know, in detail a bit more about my rigs, my bait, and also what we've learned. So what we're going to do is we're just going to have a quick run through the bait that I brought with me today. So starting off with me micro pellets from my method feeder. The pellets that I've used are 2mm green betaine pellets. These are pellets from Blake's. They're pure betaine pellets. The reason why I like them at this time of the year, to be honest, is they absolutely stink, which is a good thing. We're only using sort of little piles of bait, so you want it super attractive. So these pellets are absolutely brilliant. Also, because they're really, really high in oil, they bind really, really well. So sometimes you can have a problem with screttings and coppings, you know, actually getting them to bind. It can be a bit of a nightmare at times. So with these, all I do is I put them in a fine mesh landing net head, just put them, fill a bucket up of water, put them in, leave it for literally 30 seconds, take the landing net out of the bucket of the water and put them on the ground. And that way they'll be on the dry side. Once they've dried out, they'll be on the dry side. And then for however many I need, say 2 pints for instance, what I'll do is I'll take 2 pints of my pellets, put them into a clean bucket and just add little bits of water until you get them to the right consistency. And that way you'll find that they bind, but they still break down, but you can see they're not crumbling away. And these, you know, have been left like this for a long time now. But you rub them and they literally go back down to nothing. You know, once they've been in the water, all the lumps as such dissolve. But I just think that they're absolutely brilliant for a method feeder, so give them a try. A lot better than your standard pellets. Here at Barston you can use whatever pellets you want, so have a go with them, you know, where you're allowed to use your own pellets. Give them a try because I really do think they're brilliant. The other thing that I brought with me, pole fishing wise, is just some sweet corn. The sweet corn I use just from Lidl's. One, it's very cheap, but what I like about it, to be honest, is it's nice and sort of bright in colour, but there's lots of misshapes in there, so, you know, almost a bit like when you're using your expanders. Sometimes a 4mm's better, sometimes, you know, a big 4mm like a 5mm size, and then sometimes a 6mm's better. And again, when you're fishing corn on the pole, depending on what sort of fish are in your peg, you know, I can use a little bit, sort of a medium bit and a big bit, or even 2 bits. So that's the corn that I use. I really, really like it, to be honest. Then the last sort of feed bait that I brought with me is just some 8mm pellets. Now these ones are quite dark in colour, but what's nice about them, they're Coppins 8mm. That's really, really important. I wouldn't use screttings, to be honest. The reason I like these, because they take quite a long time to break down in the water, and because they're quite dark, they're very heavy. So when it comes to actually loose feeding our pellets, like, the accuracy is really, really important. So by using a nice heavy pellet, they'll all group really, really well, and that's really, really important. Now, whilst I've got these in my hand, what I want to show you is what I was talking about as such, with a light coloured hook pellet. Not the blue ones, these are just Lindholm pellets. But whenever I find a nice sort of light batch of Coppins, I keep them, to be honest, because I just find them so much better for the hook, be it 8mm for a bomb or a waggler, or when you're pole fishing, even a 6mm, you know, a light 6mm. again can make a big difference. Then when it comes to sort of talking actually about hook baits now, again, just like with our corn, you know, there's sort of loads of different sizes in here, and sort of a slightly bigger one, if I dig two out, hopefully you'll be able to see. If I put them on my hand, you'll be able to see those two are the bigger ones, and them ones are slightly smaller. And just alternate, you know, with what pellet you've got on the hook, because the difference in the size of pellet can make a massive difference to how many bites you do or don't get. Just as a rough guide, when I'm fishing on a lead, I prefer sort of the longer ones, to be honest, because I think they stand out better in and amongst the loose feed. But when I'm fishing with a waggler, I'd opt for a sort of a smaller one, because I think they snatch at it. So a smaller pellet, you just find you miss less bites. Then the only other baits that I brought with me, these are basically hook baits. I've got sort of a little mixture of boilies, got some wafters in there. Whenever I come here, to be honest, these little Drennan, I think they're called Yum Yums or something like that, but these little Drennan ones, little sinking boilies, you know, just to show you the difference in size, that's sort of a wafter, which a lot of people use. But when you come to Barston, there's lots of skimmers, loads of F1s and carp, anything from sort of £2 all the way up to, I think the biggest ones in here is like over £30. What I prefer, to be honest, with these smaller hook baits when I'm fishing with a mecca feeder is I don't mind what I get a bite off, as long as I know that something's eating out my feeder. So if a skimmer comes in and eats out my feeder, I want to catch it, wind it back in and reset my trap. If I've got too big a hook bait, I can be sat there thinking I'm not getting any bites, but if you've got loads of skimmers and that in your peg, they're actually eating out your feeder and just disturbing your feeder. So you might find that you're not seeing any bites, but by the time a carp comes in, there's no bait left on your feeder. So to be honest, those two, I mean, sort of my go-to hook baits for a mecca feeder, yellow or an orange one, but I prefer them sinking, to be honest, when possible. Again, I brought, you know, a few wafters with me, some little Bandon ones. These can be really good on a waggler. You just got to make sure that you test it in the edge before you cast out, just to make sure that they sink, because if your hook's too small, it'll actually float. And then I brought some bigger wafters with me, again, just to change the hook bait. I always bring them with me, but normally put the lid on at the end of the day without even using them. Then the actual last thing that I've brought with me is just a tub of sort of their krill pellets, again from Blake's, but just found lately that red seems to work really well when you're fishing shallow, and I've caught most of my fish on the waggler today actually on these red pellets. They're just a standard krill pellet, and I always carry these ones, to be honest, in 4, 6 and 8mm. If any of you that have watched me Match Focus from the Lindome Festival, you'll see just how deadly a 4mm red pellet was there when we were fishing with pellets and casters. So no different when you're fishing with pellets, to be honest. A few 8mm for the hook. So I'm just going to run you through our setup that we've used today. Now I'm going to talk you through the pole rigs, even though we haven't caught on them. So my first rig, I've set up basically 3 rigs, and the only difference really is the float. So starting off with pink hydro, 020 mainline, and then I've just got 2 number 8 back shots there, quite a long line, and then going down to a 4x12 1.7mm Maggie, just literally with a bulk of number 9s, 1 number 10 dropper, 016 hook length and a 16 Super LWG. So that's my first rig, and it's basically just under 4 foot deep here. Then my second rig is basically identical to the first, but it's a 4x14 1.7mm Maggie. Then my last rig, and again Barston, with it being shallow and it can be very windy because it's open, it's always worth setting a wire float up. So again, pink hydro, 020 mainline, my 2 number 8 back shots. Then I've got a 4x16 carp dink. This takes 2, 4, 6, 7, 8 number 8 cubes and 1 number 10. And then just a bolt, literally 11 inches from the hook, one number 8 dropper, 4-inch hook length, and again a 16 Super LWG to 016. They have my 3 rigs set up. I've just set them to fish a body over depth to start with, and that's why I have that slightly longer line, just because if it tows real bad, you can end up, you know, sometimes fishing like as far as 2-3 inches over depth can be really, really good. So they're my 3 pole rigs that I set up, just to cover my options. And then talking about my rod and line setups as such, so starting off, the first rod that I set up is an 11-foot Aventus feeder rod. It's quite a chuck there, but to be honest, I prefer using an 11-foot when I can. If you struggle, then just use 12-foot, but 11-foot for me is lovely, to be honest. And then I've got a 3000 high-speed Surtate. They're the reels that I use all of the time. I like them because they're a very strong reel and they've got a really, really fast retrieve. And then going down to the business end as such, what I've got is just 8-pound Pulse Pro, straight through, just to a 36 gram method with a long stem in it. That's really, really important. When you're chucking a long way, make sure you put that long stem in it. And then I've just got wire hydro running through it, a 3-inch hook length to a 10 QM1 with my little yellow bandem that I like using. So that's set up number 1 for our long chucking as such. So I'll pop this one down. Then onto our loose fed line as such. Starting off with our bomb rod. Again, the rod this time is 10-foot. Again, I like using 10-foot rods, to be honest. When I'm fishing where I can use it, I'd much rather use a 10-foot rod. 8-pound Pulse Pro. And then what I've got is, my setup as such, is 2 snap link swivels. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to hold it over my hand there so you can see. And the way that I set this up is I've got 1 snap link swivel with the actual link on it as such. And then I've get another snap link swivel exactly the same. And all I do is I cut the actual link off of it. And that way it just allows me to clip on and off my hook lengths. Now the other reason why I like this, here you're allowed fixed rigs, you're allowed elastic, is there's a knot just above it and my link is actually in a loop as such. And what I like about this is I like using it for 2 reasons. One, it's never going to let me down, it's direct onto my line. What I like about it is when you get a bite or something actually picks the hook bait up and moves, it just bumps that knot and helps to set the hook. It's completely free running. As soon as, like, if I put it back over, as soon as I hold it and shake it, it's completely free running. You know, if a fish got tethered, I make sure that I tie my knot, you know, so if that happens for that reason. So I hold it, shake it, it comes off really, really easy. So if you're going to do it like that, make sure that your knot's not too big so you know your snap link can't get over it. And then hook length wise, dead simple, just 0.22 pure, 12 inches, and then what I've got is a 10 QM1 to a little bait band. Dead simple. I think simple's best, to be honest, when you're fishing a bomb. Again, what I spoke about when we was fishing, in terms of the bomb, I just use my little 2/3 of an ounce square. That is my bomb setup, to be honest, no matter where I go. Really, really simple. And again, I've used it for a long time and I know it's not going to let me down. When you're hooking them big uns, you want to be 100% confident in what you're doing. And then basically I've set up 2 Waggler rods. Everything's identical, it's just as a duplicate. Because when I'm fishing a Waggler, what I think is really, really important is being able to use the lightest float possible. That's really, really important. So, setup wise, I've got an 11-foot Aventus, lovely Waggler rods these are, but I've got 5-pound Pulse Pro. Now, the one thing about light line is you've got to be not gentle with it, but you can't sort of wind them in. You know, you've got to look after your line, especially when you're using light line. The way I look at it is I want to use the lightest line I possibly can, because The smaller the float you can use and that you can keep still, 100% more bites you catch. More bites you get. So my setup on my actual line is so simple. I've got one float stop, slide one, and I want the smallest stop as well. That's really, really important. And they are the smallest ones that Guru make. And then my snap link swivel, again, the same for me lead setup, is a Maver American snap link swivel, and it's a size 16. To be honest, when I'm bomb fishing, when I'm waggler fishing, I just want the minimal amount of stuff on the line as possible because there's less tangles. Just don't want anything big clumpy on it. So my little American snap link swivel. And the reason I like these is because basically your line can't get caught around it, so it can't, you know, your main line, your hook lamp can't get damaged. So that goes on the line, and then another float stop like so, and then all I do is just put 1 or 2 number 9 or number 8 cubes or stots, whatever you use, behind it, and that just stops the float slipping. I'd much rather have 1 or 2 shot there than 2 or 3 rubbers personally. And then again, dead simple, all the way down to 0.20 and a 12 QM1, and that has just got my red pellet on it. Dead simple, and like I say, both of my rods are identical, but I always set both up because when you are fishing with light line, you are running the risk of getting broke every now and again, but we've used them all day, not got broke. As long as you're gentle with it, you know, just bear that in mind. But I promise you, using light line it makes a massive difference to how many fish you catch, because you can use so much lighter floats. So one last thing before we wrap up as such is I'm going to talk you through the floats that I've used. So I've got some foam wagglers, some like little tiny dobbin ones. Now the only problem with foam wagglers is actually getting good ones is quite difficult, and nobody really seems to make them anymore. Richie made me these, and I've asked him if he'd make some, and he won't. Now the little Guru ones are fine. The reason I like this float, I'm a bit anal when it comes to my waggler fishing, to be honest. The reason I like this float is because it takes 2 SSGs. For me, that's really important, because with my setup that I've got, I know that I can cast this float just past where I can loose feed my pellets. Any heavier, and I don't need it that heavy, it's just the lightest float that I can actually use to get just beyond where I want to feed. So that's why I've got these ones made for me. One thing that you might be able to see is I just make my own links. I think that's really important. Anything under sort of 4.5 grams, I think a shot either side's best. Anything over 4.5 grams, like your balsa wagglers as such, then you can have a single loading. I just find that they cast better, they cast straighter, and they land better as well. So that's my first float. We've not been able to use it today. If it was like this, it'd have been absolutely perfect. Then my next 2 floats are exactly the same. I pop one down just so I can hold one up. It's basically a number 3 size, which is 4.5 grams. Now, one thing, when you are making your attachments, always put the biggest shot closest to your rig ring. So it's so simple to make, to be honest. All you do is just get a length of fluorocarbon, put a rig ring on, then put your biggest shot next to your rig ring, then your float adapter, then your smallest shot, and then crimp it on the line. If you go into almost any tackle shops, to be honest, Corda sell a crimping pack, and I think it's the 0.6 crimps that fit 20 pound IQ2. That's all you need. It's so simple, but trust me, it's worth it, because when you're clipping on and off your wagglers, and you'll be able to see like they move around really nicely. But what's important when you are using a longer float is to have that big shot, because you cast off your big shot, you wind in off your big shot, you'll get a lot less tangles. Have it set up like that rather than the same size shot either side of the float. Then my next float as such is, I'm going to talk about my balsa one. So on my rod is my 6 gram Guru. To be honest, that has been by far the best float today. Then when it's really windy, just using an 8 gram Guru. And then when it comes to the next size, to be honest, like the 10 gram Guru in the smaller balsa floats as such, is quite long. And when here, you're catching really close to your float. So when I want to have a go on a 10 gram float, I actually go up to the next size of waggler, like the actual fat ones, because I think it's just more in proportion. When I'm fishing a waggler, me personally, I prefer the 10 gram fat one than the 10 gram long one. And the only other float that I always have with me on my side tray is a little Drennan. It's a number 5 loaded pellet waggler, and it's 5 grams. And sometimes, not necessarily here, but if it's a bit deeper, and you're catching them hanging the bait, using this float rather than using like a foam or a balsa waggler can be so much better. If you're catching them hanging it, you always, you know, they're not going to be tightening the rod up, so you've got to strike, and that float is going to be a lot more sensitive than the balsa one or my foam one, just because of the diameter. They sit nice and low in the water, and they're absolutely perfect. So I know it seems a bit of like messing around, but you know, you want to get a few of each waggler, because again, always the lightest one you can use will 100% get you more bites. So just concluding our day really, we've ended up with £91, and fortunately enough for us, we've actually managed to qualify, which is a right result, because we were the first peg going towards 124. 124's had £154, and Mick Ball on 122 has had £98, 97, £98, and he was second. So we've been third in this section, but fortunately enough, they've qualified. But just to give you a rundown of actually how it's fished, I'm really pleased with how we've ended up today. Minus Mick and 124, from 120 all the way up to us, and then the next 10 pegs were actually quite, you know, top. I think £66 was next, so, you know, from being in the middle sort of thing, really pleased how we've ended up. I hope you've enjoyed watching this. I hope you've learned a few things, and I will see you on the bank soon.